If you have been following the previous lessons in the Keys of Magic series, one of your foundational practices is to walk about your village in a stance of neutral observation. As you do so, for the most part, you select your own encounters and conversations. However, this is just not how real life works all the time. Often in your village walk, and certainly as you live your daily life in the wider world, encounters find you. How may you best meet these serendipities as a magician, particularly as a novice, which is who I am addressing thus far in the series? Again, if you've been listening and living what you've heard in previous lessons, you already know enough to apply to the situation. Let's remind ourselves. Though, by the way, if this is your first Keys of Magic video, welcome, and there is enough review in this video for any magical practitioner to get something out of it. The base practice for how to meet encounters that find you is, if they are benign, to allow them to play out in your presence, your magical magician presence, also keeping in mind that you are in novice stage. Offer or reply to greeting. Normally you might conduct these encounters in terms of world games you are both participating within. From now on, do your best to release world game interpretations to the degree that is practical in the situation. Enjoy the encounter magically and in terms of anima. That includes thinking of the appearance of the individual before you as an animated, true nature being. Also realize that not all encounters are human. Anything that enters your presence is a living encounter, an appearance of anima. In terms of encounter, whether you are initiating or another being is initiating, your immediate influence, thus your immediate magic, is your stance. I invite you to understand your stance not as passive, but as active and creative. Your prepared stance will do a lot of automatic or natural magic for you. At the novice stage, you may have to think through your stance in the moment of the encounter. Your village walks can help you with that practice level. Although, again, if you've been with me all along, I think you are beginning to have a natural stance. We're getting that far in the practice. Definitely, the more adept you are, your stance will induce conditions without having to always direct from front of mind. Let's remember what we already know and hopefully are currently living regarding the magician's stance. Your stance is one of your main powers, an emphasized development. You have now developed and will continue to develop your stance as the understanding of, connection within, and arising from the 5 animated realms: true nature, frequency, element, appearance, and enchantment. Although I have not yet taught you enchantment skills yet, so that's future. You have now developed and will continue to develop your stance as neutral observation and hearing, the wide observation and the deep observation, the hearing and intake by means of your whole body, the observation of sensation, not just eyes and ears. You don't have to figure appearances and encounters out. Simply watch, hear, sense. You have developed and will continue to develop your stance as honorable and as the approach to and from the sacred, the clearest sight there is. Each encounter is a sibling, a guest, a beloved stranger, a being gifting you with their lyrics and melody and magic. You have developed and will continue to develop the trust you place in yourself and in the web of life. You continue to develop the trustworthiness you offer. Your level of trustworthiness is heralded through your stance. You have developed and will continue to develop your stance as one path of cause. Through your stance, you manage the anima within encounters. You regulate resonance, magnetism, movement, differential seeding, and projection. Wyrd flows from your stance. Your stance is an expression of your wyrd. In terms of resonance, generally speaking, you match the resonance of the individual, which constitutes hearing first, and then you will lead the individual to a resonance switch to match your resonance so that you can guide the remainder of the encounter, which constitutes you speaking and wielding. In a benign and non-wielding encounter, you don't have to complete a resonance switch. You can maintain your position as the listener and just enjoy the being's resonance and language and dance, and learn something from them to add to your magical quiver. I have not yet shared specific techniques for inviting to resonance switch. We will definitely get to that in the series. However, your trustworthiness is the base of all invitation. Your deliberate and debris-less stance is in and of itself a powerful and effective invitation for the other to follow along within your resonance. Another way to say all of this is that your presence naturally proposes the kind of experiences you desire and are willing to participate within. Each encounter may be deepened into the next steps of knowledge and leveraged into wield. But of course, not every encounter has to be harvested that way. Any knowledge and wielding would be mutual and consensual, a conversation. If an encounter has come to you, it may be that the individual or elemental or appearance may be attempting to wield. Generally, invitations like this are a neutral opportunity. You can decide if you consent to participate or not. It may be fun to make some magic with whatever comes your way. Successive encounter is your dance through anima. Encounters are not contests. There is room for all forms and gifts of anima and magic. Be the fearless witness and space for others' magic they wish to display for you. Allowing benign encounters to play out is actually you being a student for your teachers. I suggest that you wouldn't want to miss any of your teachers, to miss the presence of masters. Each encounter is another opportunity to deepen your language learning. The magician nurtures an ever-increasing synergy of a relationship web, as well as nurturing quality one-on-one relationships with individual beings. Also, enjoying encounters is meant to be how we have fun being alive. If you have practical concerns about not allowing even a benign encounter, let's say you don't have the time or you are too tired at the moment, that's certainly okay. You can prepare ways to handle that, such as being ready with a script. Thanks for saying hi, but I must be on my way. Also, being in a state of observance allows you to see some encounters coming, and that may allow you to take another way to avoid the completion of the intersection. You are free and are not beholden to any given encounter, even though I've suggested to allow them generally. Do consider, however, that if your intention is to dedicate as a magician, that your time out and about is generally a time to be in stance, including the receiving and the seeking of encounter. The adept magician manages their energy level with specific rest and renewals within their own space when they are not out and about. Consider that while you are walking world, you perhaps would always want your magic on, which comes down to your stance. Our mainstream society is encounter, intimacy, greeting, knowledge, and consent averse. These aversions constitute enchanted bondage. So be patient with yourself as you grow into your stance. Nevertheless, I invite you to no longer bow to these aversions. Be magical. Adventure through a magical world and freely meet magical beings. Listen to and let others teach you their language, beginning with the nature of their desires and movements. Let the other be your master teacher for a moment. You may ask, what do I do with less benign encounters? The base choice here is to avoid them, of course, especially as a novice. But the trick is, how does one avoid them, and what does one do if one comes upon us unavoidably? First of all, there are many life and interpersonal skills that one may learn that may not necessarily be lensed through magical theory. For example, one may learn skills in therapy that would help during and regarding the processing after of unavoidable difficult encounters. And keeping in mind that not all difficult encounters are human. For example, accidents and weather and all kinds of elemental and ordinary challenging experiences. Magically, in terms of the practice level you've gained in this series, as a novice, you would ideally be in the presence of, or not too far from, an adept or a master mentor magician. Any less benign encounters would be left to them to handle on your behalf, or to guide you through any participation they deem you ready for. In our modern life, where you are getting magical teaching from social media instead of a human mentor, this sort of support is not always available unless you do have a mentor in your art. However, the premise is still that you may ask for and have help with difficult encounters and entanglements, as well as the aftermath of such. Find your safe and supportive and wise and strong people, and surround yourself with them. While practically sometimes we have to face difficulty alone because #real life, in theory, that is not the ask. We may have help. A practice that you may move into whenever you feel ready to do so is to treat all human encounters as an encounter with a potential candidate magician. The opportunity then is to give them the first key. In this is you speaking, thus wielding. Do this first key seeding lightheartedly and just observe what happens each time with unique individuals and learn from it. This giving of the first key is not about recruitment. It's not about explaining a bunch of stuff. It's not about convincing someone. The first key, recall, is that the earth is a magical realm. In the encounter, you will still first hear that individual fully. If you then feel moved to do so, speak the key. Now, the speaking of the key may or may not need to be in a human language sentence. It can be, if you can do that, simply say, "The earth is full of magic," or some other simple script that you fashion or that comes to you in the moment. But if sentencing out loud, wording, does not fit the conversation, then you can gently project, not force, an energetic version of what you know. You knowing that the earth is a magical realm. The individual is then free to choose what to do with that seed. They may discard it. And it is a seed. It likely is not going to ripen in that moment, but it may stay with them and lead them to further keys. It's a gift for them, a potential. It is a like that will speak to the like already within them. Again, nothing to force or insist upon. Another practice you may eventually take up is to ask yourself or take note of the following. Is my art relevant to this encounter or any encounters? Or how may I bring my art to encounters? What comment would my art make upon this encounter, and how to conduct it by means of my art? Again, not all encounters are human encounters. Another way to say this is to get used to approaching the world in terms of your art. This will suggest the giving and receiving of gifts in terms of your art. Another practice is to note the presence of element in the encounter and the expressions and changes of which elements are participating in that moment. Many of the encounters that come to you are purely elemental, such as the sun's rays and the breezes of the wind. This is what I have for you today. I'll see you in the next video.